So I want to say something now about stillness and movement in meditation. So you'll have noticed that in both those exercises, I was sort of inviting you to notice what was, whether your experience was still or whether it was moving and changing. So it's quite common for people to think of meditation in terms of stillness, in terms of attaining stillness, stilling the mind. But actually, there's always movement. There's always this continual process of experiences arising, changing, moving on, ceasing, process of thoughts, feelings, impressions, sensations. It's all going on. So movement is natural and inherent. In fact, it's even intrinsic to experience of the mind. And it's not actually helpful to try to control the mind to prevent movement. There's a lovely way in which that's put by a Chan master called Swan Sang. He said, if you endeavor to cease activity in order to achieve passivity, then your very endeavors will fill your mind with activity. Now, it'll also give a sense of trying. If I'm trying to still the mind, particularly if I'm trying hard to still the mind, then my experience will be hard and trying. I bring that to it. So what are we doing then in place of trying to still the mind? Well, I want to use the analogy of balance again. So last week I had this sort of balanced effort that was a bit like this. Yeah. So the mind's leaning away from the practice. I'm kind of leaning back into it so that the two, the endeavor here is kind of balanced against the tendency to distraction, which is the weight of this block. So here's another balance. This is more when we're just kind of holding in balance. So this is the sort of balance of the posture. It's upright, it's poised, it's alert, it's not stiff, but it's kind of balanced. So the weight of the torso is just falling through the vertebrae down into the sitting bones and then into the chair. Now, when I'm balancing this yoga block, I'm not actually still. There's a continual sequence of small movements that are correcting and maintaining the balance. Yeah, there's always a little small movement. I think Sylvia actually once used the phrase "the small dance," for this quality of balance. So rather than thinking of standing still, you're thinking of you're just standing in a small dance. Now, trying to eradicate movement and achieve stationary stillness would be more like this, yeah, where I'm kind of gripping the block and I'm holding it tight. Yeah. So trying's got this kind of grip to it. It's got a tightness, it's got a rigidity. What it doesn't have is any quality of balance. Yeah. I'm not feeling that this yoga block is balanced in any meaningful way. Whereas now, I'm not gripping it at all, I'm balancing it. So balancing is like a process. And you can think of that process as sort of relaxing into, yeah? So you establish and then you relax into. So I establish the posture in an upright, alert, poised sort of posture, then I relax into it. And I can do that because once the torso is upright, I no longer need my back muscles to sort of hold me up. If I'm leaning over, I'll need some muscle to hold me up. If I'm just poised, I won't. And when I don't need the muscles to hold me up, I can relax the muscles down the side of the back. Yeah. So this setting up posture at the beginning of meditation is a really excellent opportunity to establish your whole approach to the practice. This approach of sort of balanced effort. Yeah. So as we relax into the balance, the movements become more subtle, but we're never completely still. Yeah. And the movement's always, just as much as you need. So in the mind, there's a parallel. Okay, so there's the mind is embodied. So the qualities we find in the body have a very direct parallel with the qualities we find in the mind. So we're setting up the posture, we're finding this quality of balance in the body. There's a very direct parallel to that, a quality of balance in the mind. So in the mind, likewise, stillness and movement are always there. Even in the deepest state of absorption, there's still some subtle movement. Even in the most frenetic agitation, not everything is moving. So there's stillness and movement as a sort of polarity. So those of you who were here last week will remember I introduced this polarity map with concentration and relaxation. And here's another one, stillness and movement. And you remember what I was saying about polarity maps. It's not that there's a perfect point in the middle. You're not trying to get to one particular point. Actually, there's an upside to both. So stillness can be very quiet, settled, subtle, deep. Movement can be very alive, fluid, can be subtle as well. So there can be positive experiences of either, and either of those are great. Unfortunately, they both have downsides as well. So stillness can be kind of rigid, or just dead, and movement can be distracted, restless in particular. Movement could be restlessness. And if you find you're in the downside, the thing to do is to bring in the opposite. So if you find you're restless, you're just fidgeting and you're restless in meditation, then try relaxing into a stillness. Try relaxing that movement, just letting the movement drop. Look for stillness. If you find that you're kind of rigid and tight and stuck, just free up a bit. Free up a bit. Sometimes it's good to sort of just kind of in the posture to just kind of find that balance again. By you let go and you just find where your balance is, and then you just readjust and allow the movement. So that's stillness and movement. So what's the practice then? Yeah, so you could say the practice in a nutshell, going back to this handout, which you can see here, knowing how to settle the mind to establish calm and tranquility whilst allowing movement to occur. So there's very much a feature of broadband awareness. It's an aspect. It's a whole area in itself, stillness and movement. It's an aspect of broadband of awareness. So if we have this broadband of awareness, then we're allowing experience to move within it. So if I've got my center of attention on this particular point of experience of the breath, but I've got this whole broad band of awareness in which everything is allowed, everything is welcome, even everything is allowed to be there. And there's just this whole movement of experience there. So, okay, so thoughts arise, thoughts unfold, thoughts pass away. It's just allowed. I'm able to just allow that to happen whilst keeping my basic center of attention in the same place. I don't need a tight or defended or rigid center of attention. I can just have a light touch if I'm just allowing the movement to just unfold as it does. If you don't hold on to any experience, then it'll just move on and pass away. So allowing the free play of thoughts and feelings to arise. Yeah. It's all kind of contained. So the broad band of awareness is like a larger container. So in contrast to that, if I've got a rather narrow and tight and constricted sort of awareness, then other things will come in. Other things call my attention. So thoughts and feelings come in, and they won't have a place, within this narrow, tight sort of awareness, and so they'll create a disturbance. And disturbance is just a description for experience that we're not able to incorporate, we're not able to integrate. So what we're not able to integrate, what we're not able to include in the breadth of our broad band of awareness becomes a distraction or a hindrance or a disturbance. And so we find ourselves in this disturbed state of mind. So what do we do if we find ourselves in this disturbed state of mind? It's sort of like the downside of movement. What we're often tempted to do is tighten our focus. Yeah? Try harder. Yeah? So I'm trying to concentrate, I'm getting distracted, I try harder, tightening the focus. And what happens then is that the focus becomes tight. Yeah? So tight is a sort of quality. It's this, yeah, tight. It's not a state of mind that incorporates sensitivity, subtleness, openness, all of which are qualities. They're basically qualities of mindfulness. They're certainly qualities of absorption, of samadhi, the word we translate as absorption, of samatha, the word we translate as calm abiding sometimes. So mindfulness, the breathing, and the metta bhavana, they're both trying to cultivate this state of mind, which we can call calm abiding, which we can call absorption. It has these qualities of a sort of settled, open sensitivity. It doesn't have qualities of sort of hardness and tightness. Okay, so you're trying to practice in this way. You find you're feeling quite disturbed, experiences are disturbing your concentration. You don't feel able to settle. So there's a temptation to tighten the focus. What else could we do instead? Well, my suggestion is, rather than tightening the focus, try broadening the band of awareness. Broaden the band of awareness. Okay. So if you remember back to the first image, perhaps Tim could sort of scroll back to the first image. So you find that your wiggly line is your attention. It's wandering off out of focus, out of the focus, away from the focus. So we could try and drag it back, but alternatively, we could just broaden the band of awareness so that it can sort of remain within our broad awareness and settle back. So finally, a description of what not to do and a description of what to do. These are all invitations, by the way. Everything I'm saying is of the nature of a personal invitation, which means if you prefer to meditate a different way, that's entirely your choice. So my suggestion in terms of what not to do, let's avoid identifying meditation with stillness in an exclusive way, that sees any movement as a distraction and leads to a sort of narrower approach, which is creating this division between, on the one hand, a protected concentration, a defended concentration, and on the other hand, threatening distractions that need to be pushed away. Yeah. So if you find that your kind of overall experience in meditation could be described as protecting or defending and pushing away, then my invitation is, well, let's do something else. Because if we do that, then the mind remains tight and constructed, and remains tight and constricted. And within a tight and constricted state of mind, it's not possible to, well, for more significant or deeper integration, it's not going to happen because so much experience is being kept out. So you may well recall that the mindfulness of breathing is a practice, is an integration practice. So sometimes we relate to our meditation practice in terms of what's called a system of meditation, which begins with integration. And mindfulness of breathing is usually the first practice we teach because it's one that you can really begin with. And you can begin with a practice of gathering, integrating, bringing your disparate I don't know, aspirations, intentionalities, preferences, drives, interests into relationship. And we can do that with a broad band of awareness just by holding this reference point at the center. So just holding a center means that within the breath, we're just able to allow whatever is arising to arise, to unfold, to change, to cease. And that's a context in which integration can happen. It's a sort of integration happening as a sort of settling process. So this is more kind of the suggestion, the invitation, what to do. It's better to practice the meditation in an opening, undefended sort of way. So the quality of openness in awareness, which is part of what we're trying to cultivate, I think it's often most helpful to think of that in terms of being undefended. So to be undefended means to just be open to whatever experience is apparent, is calling our attention. Yeah? So approaching the practice in a more open and undefended way involves welcoming and inviting it all in. It's all got a place within the broad band of awareness. And the essence of this approach is to keep awareness broad and spacious, allow the free play of movement, thoughts, feelings, intentions, emotions, images, and they can all just be there without their actually disturbing us. So we're able to keep the center and just allow everything to be there. So allowing has got this sort of middle way quality. It's not pushing away, but it's not grabbing on either. So I'm just allowing it to be there. And if I can just allow this whole broad field of awareness to just be there in the broad band of awareness, then it'll naturally just settle. So you can think of the progression from distraction to absorption as a settling, just allowing to settle. Like one of these snow globes, if you just leave it and don't shake it, it'll all gradually settle in its own time. So the holding the center of attention in a very light sort of way is a sort of equivalent of just leaving that snow globe in place rather than worrying about it and picking it up and looking around in different directions to it. You just leave it there, just allow it to just be there, and then the snow will gradually settle and the whole thing will clarify, as the sediment settles and the fluid becomes much clearer, more lucid. Okay, so that's the suggestion by way of a broad band of awareness practice. And so what I'd like to suggest is let's spend the rest of the evening with a practice of that. So this will be it's a bit longer than an exercise. It'll be more like a lightly led meditation of about 20 minutes or a little less than 20 minutes. And I'll just drop in some suggestions around taking this approach of the broad band of awareness, allowing movement, allowing stillness, keeping a center. Okay. So starting with reconnecting with our helpful supportive posture. So I'm particularly inviting you to find a poised and alert posture. Yeah, so it's got a bit of lift to it and is balanced. Yeah, so the weight of the torso is balanced on the sitting bones. And there's this lovely quality of balance that just gradually becomes apparent to us as we relax into this balanced, poised, alert posture. So we've already been practicing establishing the posture and then relaxing into this balanced posture. And as we relax into the experience, the quality of balance becomes more apparent. And now with our attention, we're establishing our center of attention at a chosen point. So I'm choosing this point on the tip of the nose, where the air first becomes the breath. And now that I've established this center of attention, I'm going to relax into this centered attention. And that relaxing into the attention, into the awareness, is an opening to a much broader band of awareness that just has this particular experience in the center. So a very light touch just keeps the center of attention in place while we relax into a broad band of awareness. And there's this quality of allowing. So everything is allowed within the broad band of awareness. The free play of movement, of thoughts, images, feelings, emotions, likes and dislikes, moods. Everything is allowed. All we're doing is just holding this center very lightly. And this allowing everything to settle, allowing all the movement to settle in its own time. As we just hold the center of attention and then relax around that. And noticing any quality of stillness that's present. You might find that the broad band of awareness itself is quite still, that experiences move within it, but the awareness itself is still. Noticing the quality of the experience of the breath at the center of attention. You might find that this is becoming more subtle, perhaps less tangible. Allowing that to change, not holding on to any particular experience. So you might find that the experiences themselves are stilling, settling, as the body relaxes into balance, and as the attention relaxes into this broad band of awareness, with the lightest touch on a center of attention. And as the particular experiences settle, you may find that the quality of the awareness itself becomes more apparent. A quality of broad, expansive openness that's undefended and allowing. A quality of receptive sensitivity that's subtle and nuanced. A quality of light and clarity that's simply present, just as it is.